Now, I see that you work with people on phobias and also before they go into surgery. Talk about that. That's interesting.
Well, phobias are terrific. One session and you cure your phobia. I just did somebody this morning who was afraid of snakes, and she said it really never bothered her. She just doesn't go to the zoo, and she doesn't really think about snakes, and she does have a peculiar habit before she and her husband go to visit friends in an apartment or a home they've never been to. She just casually asks, "Oh, by the way, do you have any snakes?"
Wow, that's an interesting line of inquiry.
But they are going as a family on a family vacation next week to Costa Rica. And there are going to be lots of snakes around, both in the area and in places that they'll be visiting. So she wanted to be hypnotized.
Well, we better add one for me then, because if you're telling me Costa Rica has a lot of snakes, I will need hypnosis before I go.
Okay. Okay.
What about recovering from surgery and pre-surgery? Because you said you're doing a lot of that these days.
Oh, I think pre-surgical hypnosis. In fact, I don't even have people come to my office or give them a hypnotic session by phone anymore. I just send them a CD so they can play it a couple of times before their surgery. And the CD actually hypnotizes them and tells them that they're going to be calm beforehand. They're actually going to look forward to the event. They will not only will they not be nervous, but they'll be eager. It'll consider the operation an adventure, and they'll be so happy that it's happening. Then I tell them that during the procedure, while they're in the operating room, their vital signs will stay stable. Their blood will move away from the site of the surgery so the surgeon will have an easy time. And then they're going to begin their healing on the operating table, so they'll have very rapid healing. And then the final thing I say is, oh, by the way, you're not going to have any pain. And it works very well. I get good results. I get good feedback. Sometimes the surgeons even call me and say, what did you do?
What does this tell us about the mind-body connection then?
Well, first of all, it tells us that hypnosis was the first and original mind-body medicine. And think about it. Before anesthesia came on the scene, hypnosis was the way in which all surgeries were done. In 200 years ago, people had amputations all the time, and the way they did it was someone in their family would talk to them while the surgeon was chopping off a limb.
I'm going to faint right here at the thought of this. Oh, my God.
But they didn't have anesthesia. It was words, and words are very powerful. Think about how powerful words are. For example, have you ever gotten a phone call that made you cry? Yes, of course.
Yes.
That made you feel weak, that made you feel frightened, that made your heart race? That's the power of words. Words can change the way in which your body behaves.
That's why I always tell people, be careful what you declare. Be careful the stories you tell yourself about yourself and the world.
Well, be careful, or on the other hand,
be mindful.
Tell yourself good ones.
Exactly. What about for children? Like before they take a test, there's a lot of kids that have a lot of fear about school and taking tests.
Yeah, we do that. That's kind of easy. You just hypnotize them. It takes 2 seconds, and you tell them that they're going to think that they're in their own room doing their homework on their bed like they usually do, and they're going to come up with the right answer immediately. They'll have access to all their information, all the information they have learned, and they won't be nervous. They'll be calm because they'll feel as if they're in their room in their home.
Do you have any cases where you've worked with kids that had behavioral problems that would get in fights a lot, that kind of a thing?
I don't do that very much. Occasionally. What I say then is I usually give them the hypnotic suggestion that they're going to ignore a certain person. They'll come in and say that, Jimmy bothers me so much and I keep wanting to punch him out. And I'll just say, you're going to ignore Jimmy. You're not even going to hear what he says. And that'll work for the one kid. I can't really change anybody's behavior. Maybe someone else can. I don't know how to do that. I've never, but I can get them to respond to a certain person in a certain situation in a new way.
Because I would think that if you could do it with food, making different food choices, helping cause weight loss, and then also with smoking, that maybe provocation, that people would handle provocation differently. That would be an interesting part.
Except that we can't cover all bases. You don't know how, what is the provocation going to be for a kid? You have to be very specific in hypnosis. And, is it going to be this kid who's going to provoke them or that kid? Is it going to be any kid? Well, sometimes they need to respond. It gets a little tricky.
So you're usually led how to proceed with that, and it needs to be specific. So what happens in weight loss? What is occurring in the hypnosis that's all of a sudden manifesting in people losing weight?
Well, you develop new habits. You decide, and with hypnosis, you need to be very specific. You will avoid eating from the bread basket on a restaurant table. You will notice when you feel full much sooner than usual. And upon feeling full, you'll stop eating for that meal. In fact, you will leave the table when the meal is over.
People may be walking out of dinner parties and dinner tables right in the middle of the thing.
Well, that's why we have to be very careful.
Exactly. Otherwise, that could all be tracked back to you.
Right. But, I try to mention that you shouldn't stuff yourself with more food after you finish a meal and you're full. And then with food, I do say that there are certain foods you should not have. And I go through this with the person prior to their session. They'll tell me that they want to eliminate chocolate or fried foods or sugar or whatever it is. And very often it's not about weight loss, it's about allergies or something like that.
That's fantastic. So this is almost dropping in a new program?
Something like that,
kind of with permission. Now, some people have asked, what if they get stuck in a trance? I know you've responded to this in the past, but there's that question. Can people get stuck in a trance?
No, because you get too bored. But people say this to me. They say, what if, they say to me, what if you drop dead in the middle and you're not there to say, come out of it? Well, if that were to happen, sooner or later their mind would get very bored and silenced, and they'd open their eyes and come out of it, and that would be that. But no, you can't get stuck in a trance.
Are most people's eyes closed when they're hypnotized, or are they open?
Usually closed when, it's just easier to concentrate on something. If I tell them concentrate on an image of a flower, a person, something that they want, they can visualize it clearer if their eyes are closed. However, some people prefer to concentrate on an image in their room, and they'll see, or in my office, they'll see something clearly.
And what about people say, look, I'm very strong-minded. That could never happen to me. I could never be hypnotized.
It's really the opposite. Well, let's say that you came to me because you wanted to stop smoking. If you really strongly want to stop smoking, your strong mind works in your favor because you and I are allies. We're not adversaries. We're on the same team. We both have the same goal. So your strong mind is going to work in your favor.
What are people's fears about going into a trance? What are they afraid of?
That they're going to quack like a duck. They're going to do something weird, because the stage hypnotists, who are very good hypnotists, are not there to change your habit. They are there to entertain an audience.
What was the name of that really famous stage hypnotist that used to do a lot of work in L.A.? She was huge when I was a child.
I don't know who that is, but I will tell you, there are some terrific hypnotists. They are really talented, and the people who volunteer are very good subjects for hypnosis. Otherwise, they wouldn't volunteer. And it's just, those are the most hilarious shows I have ever seen. I love them.
So that's why people have some of the concerns, is because they've seen some of this.
But, the whole idea is that when you go to a hypnotist, you want the hypnotist to talk to you, and you and the hypnotist come up with a list of things that the hypnotist will tell you when you are hypnotized. we write what we call a script. The client and I come up with a script.